Don't look at it. The most important thing in that paragraph.
So that's why I put is instead of was.
Alright. Is that paragraph? Okay, let's go to page 10.
No, we have to read the next paragraph.
Yeah, paragraph 7, which is you again.
Alrighty, you got it.
That's you again. Wait,
Yeah,
paragraph 7.
the first one was 6.
Where's number paragraph 7? Where's paragraph 7?
Well, no, he read paragraph 7. With this one, we need to do paragraph 8.
You don't need mine, you need one of theirs.
We gotta do the paragraph 7.
Let's just read number 8 for now.
Leo, can you borrow your paper real quick?
Just fling it. Alright, so.
No, read again. It's his turn.
The first one on my life.
Where are we again? Paragraph 10. There's no paragraph 10.
We have 8 minutes left, guys.
And there's no paragraph
I'm
9.
not in any of these paragraphs. I'm just in one single one. Alright, ready, guys? Ready
Wait.
to write?
We don't know you're in this one, the parentheses like things. You're in that one.
We stop.
Hand, yeah.
This is 11.
Dominic. Yeah,
11, 12. We stop right here.
look. You see something like this?
Leo.
That means
Leo.
you.
Yeah,
Leo.
that's good.
Leo.
Because you have an narrator. And that's good.
Do you have your phone?
What?
Yeah.
No, I'm not allowed to bring it. I got an iPhone. I got a Samsung Galaxy Plus.
You got an Android.
Look at you. Samsung's better.
Android and Samsung are the same thing.
Can we just start reading? iPhone's not.
Hey. Leo. Leo, did you see my Fortnite name? Check the video about. Check the one about the cat. If not, your paper. Just here.
What?
Come on. Hey,
Yeah.
Gabby.
I
Joseph.
What?
Just read. But wait.
No Joseph today?
Alright, so
Is that you?
Wait.
Is that you? Wait, spell your
H-U-G.
Dominic.
Hug Kyle with 1. You don't have to hug. It's hug Kyle with 1. K-Y-L-E.
Dominic.
K-Y-L-E.
Dominic.
What?
Dominic.
No, I'll write it better on a sheet of paper.
Yeah, write it better.
Alright, number 7.
Dragon
55.
Look at me and fuck. You're working with your group right now. Go there.
We have about 4 minutes because it's 1:19.
Where did you eat lunch? That's where you need to go. Okay? Got it? Now where you gonna go? Where, do you remember where that was?
No, you gotta wait. Wait, ready.
Down is storm.
See, read. Then you won't even know what to write.
Alright, you can read.
No. Okay, then. Yay, mine. What do you play cards, right? Mother. Okay. And this is the last day. It's like this one. Take 10, 11. 10, 11. We're done.
All we need to do is 11 and 12.
What are you writing?
You can get it on Samsung.
No, you can't. It got to be in the Samsung Galaxy. It can only be in the Samsung Galaxy. Wait, do you have what tablet? Do you have a tablet?
I don't have anything except my phone. My mom has $80.
Because if that like if you ever hit that $500, you just have to go to Walmart and buy a iPhone Switch.
If they buy one, then it's
Okay. I don't care about
Sean, put your paper in your folder. Everybody else who's sending them what you say.
because I'm not gonna have
I drank the juice, but I forgot to eat the popcorn.
Okay, guys. Hurry, get your definitions down. Probable cause means just sufficient evidence that someone could believe that you have committed a crime. Due process would be trial by jury. Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments. Rights are entitlements or benefits that citizens have. And warrant is an official document signed by a judge. Self-incrimination is eminent domain. Government takes private property from you. Let's go, Shane. An amendment is to change. I will get you one. Looks like you have paper. I'll have one piece of paper. That's okay. You really don't need Yes, you have exactly. Do whatever you want, I know you have a sheet of paper, so I know you can be defining on that one sheet of paper. You have 2 minutes. And I've already given you every last definition. I know they do. One minute. Y'all are getting a quiz on Wednesday on both. Yep.
We haven't heard of one.
Yep. So I'm not going to grade that amendment foldable till Monday because I do have a lot of people absent. So if you have not completed it, you better get it done over the weekend. No, you glue it in, and I'll look at it Monday. And there's 2 sheets of paper, Gabriel, not this one. Okay, go ahead and wrap that up. Just know that you'll have a quiz next week on definitions. You're getting 8 more on Monday. In the basket, I want you to grab a card. Put your name on it. But in this card, 1 card per person. This is not a right or wrong answer. I just want you to try and think about anything you've learned in the past about civil rights movement. Okay? Anything that you know, I want you to put on that index card. You want me to say that again?
Yeah.
On the index card, I know for a fact that you have been taught in elementary school and probably maybe last year about something involving civil rights. If you have, put what you think you know about what that means on the index card.
What does civil rights mean?
What do you know about it? Write it down. You can share it in a second. You do. You just don't know that it's called that.
Miss, this morning, second period, there was a snake in the boys' bathroom. That's me. That's how kids are.
You know you're turning these in, right?
Huh?
You're turning these in. So you need to guess about what
Yes.
civil rights is.
Could I just like, well, I really don't know.
But it won't go inside. It's not able to.
I'll give you another minute. Yeah, 45 seconds. You just listen.
Yeah, right, I didn't know that.
Okay.
Is
30 seconds. I'm not the only one.
I think
Not yet, don't say.
Yeah, in seventh period, that you said something about civil rights.
Did I?
Yeah.
Okay, anybody want to share what the civil rights is?
me. It means
Abigail.
the right to citizens have.
Okay, so you're talking about rights of citizens. Okay, that's good. Let's leave that there, Abigail. Anybody else want to elaborate? Yes.
Freedom?
Freedom, yes. Do you see how they're using their brain because they are trying to think of words that remind them of civil? That's good. Very good. Freedom.
Civil rights are rights that are given to you by the state law.
Okay.
Equality?
Yes. Perfect word. All those words, freedom, equality, rights that are given to you, those are perfect examples of what civil rights are. More specifically, during this time, so this is just a summary. Honestly, you could talk about this for weeks and weeks, but today I only have a day. So a general snapshot of what civil rights was is a movement which African Americans sought to fully legal equality, or to have full legal equality through a series of protests, demonstrations, and legislation. So you probably already know who this individual is, right?
Martin Luther King.
Martin Luther King. So he is one of the big people that absolutely helped us across the nation. Civil rights movement. Martin Luther King. You guys have probably even listened to his speech, right? A portion of it, right? In previous classes, I'm sure. Yeah. So you know what civil rights is, you just didn't know that was the term. Okay, so during the Civil Rights Act of 1964, we finally ended segregation. What is segregation?
Separating colors by race.
Yes, in public places. Yes, segregation was an era of time where we separated people of color, with separating them from white individuals. We also discriminated against not only race, but religion and discrimination of genders. You guys, Shane?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I want you to do, today we're going to do something, I'm going to try and do this with this class. Now I've done it with other classes and I think you guys can do this. I'm going to show you 2 videos. They're very short. Again, we could talk about this for weeks, but I don't have a lot of time today. But we are going to be talking more about it next week. So a soft opening is today about what civil rights. Yes, James. No, you're good. You're good right there. So I want you to watch the video. I understand that it's a super kind of lame video in regards to it's like brain pop. I understand that, but again, I don't have a lot of time and it's giving you a lot of information at once. While you're watching it, I want you to choose one topic, anything that they're discussing in the video that you would like to research today for a grade. Okay? So watch the video on your piece of paper. Any event or person that you could research, you write it on that index card. Just one event, one person. One event or person.
On the same one?
On the same card. They're gonna give you a lot of examples for you to research, okay? Just one, yeah? Well, just know that you're missing this, and I don't wanna have to do a recap of this entire video.
I know after this.
Okay. Again, I know he's super annoying.
Who is?
This little man with the robot. I don't particularly care for it, however, he does give a lot of examples. Yes.
Dear Tim and Marie,
Okay,
what was the civil rights movement? The American Civil Rights Movement was about having universal rights for all people, regardless of race. Before the 1960s, America was a very different place. In many parts of the country, African Americans were barred from lots of public spaces. Movie theaters, restaurants, buses, and trains all had separate areas for black and white customers. African Americans also had to live in separate neighborhoods and couldn't hold the same jobs as whites. This practice of separating African Americans from white people was called segregation.
Okay.
Segregation.
All right, so when I release you, because you're going to be doing research on this topic, if you want to do research on segregation and what that was, here's an example. I'm going to come up here and stop throughout the video of examples of topics to research. I'm going to continue. So if you don't choose this, don't write it down. If you want to write about this, because you have an assignment today, write segregation.
Segregation was widespread.
Yes, sir.
How did all that even start?
That's why you're going to do research. If you choose to happen to research this. Okay?
In every part of society.
Now, again, next week we are going to be talking more about situations in which violations of rights happened, okay? So the next one he's talking about is a Supreme Court case which has something to do with the Civil Rights era. If you want to research this event, he's about to say it. You follow?
Even at school. One turning point came in 1951 with an African American student named Linda Brown. She was barred from attending the school closer to her home. Instead, she had to ride a bus to a black school across town. So her father joined a dozen other parents and sued the school board. By 1954, the case had gone all the way to the Supreme Court. The court ruled that segregation in public schools was unconstitutional. It was a landmark case known as Brown versus the Board of Education.
All right. This is another topic that you can research. Brown versus Board of Education. I'll be honest with you. You're going to have to read about this event next week, regardless. Now you can get a jump start on this particular landmark Supreme Court case if you choose this topic. Does that make sense?
Of Topeka, Kansas. Well, it wasn't that simple. These new laws had to be enforced.
Just one
And there were
event.
still lots of other laws and customs that discriminated against African Americans. In 1955, an activist named Rosa Parks took a seat on a public bus in Montgomery, Alabama.
There's lots of
Soon the bus filled up, leaving no
information.
free seats for white passengers. When the driver told Parks to give up her seat, she refused and was arrested. Well, that was the rule back then in Alabama and throughout most of the South. African Americans had to give up their seats if any white people were standing. Joanne Robinson, another activist, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a Baptist minister, organized a boycott of the city's black. Most black citizens of Montgomery refused to ride on the buses for more than a year. They chose to walk rather than submit to unfair regulations. The boycott led to a lawsuit, and in 1956, a Supreme Court decision banned segregated buses. But the fight still wasn't over. Dr. King and other brave activists organized nonviolent protests across the nation. During sit-ins, black students visited whites-only
Sit-ins is
lunch
an
counters.
event that you can
They
write
quietly
about
sat there until they were served, or until the store closed. As a result, they were often harassed or even arrested. And freedom riders rode buses from
Freedom
other
Riders
states throughout the
is
South.
another activist
They were there to make
organization
sure the
that
buses
you
were
can write
integrated,
about
with
or
blacks and
read.
whites sitting next to each other, like the law said.
Integration.
These peaceful protests were often met with anger and sometimes violence. Yeah, it's hard to imagine how something like that would make people so mad. But people often feel threatened by change. The movement reached a high point with the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. On August 28, 1963, hundreds of thousands of people marched through the heart of the country's capital. Dr. King delivered his momentous I Have a Dream.
Okay, so we all know this event. If you want to write about this event, the March on Washington in regards to jobs and freedom, I'll be honest with you, this will be on your EOC and we'll talk more about that next week.
Dream speech. The very next year, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 outlawed all discrimination based on race, religion, sex, or ethnicity. Public facilities could no longer be segregated, and businesses would have to make an effort to hire a more diverse workforce. The door to racial equality had opened, but there was still a long way to go. New laws were just the beginning. It took years of struggle before they were fully enforced. Well, changing people's prejudices, that's something no law can fix. African Americans have continued to face violence and discrimination. But dedicated activists are keeping the world's attention on the issue. The legacy of the civil rights movement lives on in these new generations and in other groups who have been inspired by its successes. Women, immigrants, gay and transgender people, these groups and others are still struggling to be treated with dignity, whether it's fighting for equal pay, the freedom to live proudly and openly, or the right to simply be left in peace. If there's one thing we've learned from the civil rights movement, it's that history is on their side. You have a dream too?
That girl has been eating the same
Let's hear it.
The video started.
Who?
Girl back there.
Oh, eating the corn? Is that all you got from it? I hope you guys got something down to research. You guys got something. If you do not want to research any of these, I'm going to show you another video because there was presidents that were also involved in this civil rights act. No, he was not involved in the civil rights act. That was abolition. No, it was a combat thing. Okay, long story short, I'm not put something down. Here is two presidents that had a significant impact on the civil rights era. You can research them as well.
You want to play? You get to go.
That dog is ugly.
Batons, police dogs, and fire hoses. On July 2nd, 1964, the simple stroke of the pen proved more powerful in the fight for civil rights. On that day, President Lyndon B. Johnson signed into law landmark legislation protecting the basic rights of minorities. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibited racial discrimination in employment and education, and outlawed racial segregation in all public places and most private businesses.
Its purpose is not to divide, but to end divisions. Divisions which have lasted all too long.
In the years prior to the Act's passage, the civil rights movement had been steadily gaining strength. A major catalyst was the 1954 Supreme Court decision, Brown versus Board of Education, in which separate but equal was declared unconstitutional. Another turning point in the movement was the arrest of Rosa Parks and the Montgomery, Alabama bus
Two
boycott.
presidents.
Then there were the sit-ins at segregated lunch counters across the South. But with each victory came violence. By the time President John F. Kennedy introduced his Civil Rights Bill in June of 1963, racial tensions were at the breaking point.
If in America, because his skin is dark, cannot eat lunch in a restaurant open to the public, if he cannot send his children to the best public school available, if he cannot vote for the public officials who represent him, if in short he cannot enjoy the full and free life which all of us want, then who among us would be content to have the color of his skin changed and stand in his place?
JFK's assassination that November put the pressure of its passage squarely on his successor's shoulders.
Yes,
President
and
Johnson
one of the
fervently
biggest
took up
reasons
the
was
cause.
because he was a big advocate on
Southern Democrats in the
desegregating,
Senate tried to talk the bill to
public
death,
facilities.
but Johnson's powers of
So you can wait
persuasion
till
finally
Sean has
won.
the same part, didn't you?
The bill narrowly passed and became law on July 2nd, 1964. It marked the end of a Herculean struggle by civil rights advocates and the beginning of a long road toward reconciliation.
Okay, so your assignment, here it is, and hopefully you guys can do this because I think you can. I'm going to give a brief, short lesson. Hopefully you've got one topic to research.
I got Brown versus Board of
Perfect.
Education.
What do you got? Perfect. I got Okay, so here's a quick Freedom Riders is perfect. Listen, quick lesson on Google Slides. If you do not know, some of you might, and high five, great. You're gonna log into Launchpad. You're gonna click on the Google Drive. Click on New. If you click on New, a drop menu will happen to appear. Click on Blank Presentation. Follow? Then, this is what I want. Eyes up here, because you got to know what you're putting on this slide. Do you see where it says Untitled Presentation? Once you load your Google Doc, you put in your subject. For instance, Jennifer is doing segregation. She's going to put segregation. She's going to title her PowerPoint, Segregation by Jennifer Cruz. She's also going to list 10 facts in regards to segregation. Okay, maybe you can put the timeline of when it started to occur in the United States. Look, there you go. 2 visuals of segregation. Do you understand? Look, that's Jennifer. I don't want 18 segregation PowerPoints. I just don't.
I'm doing segregation.
Yes, sir. Hold that thought. Listen, it is 1:51. There should be no reason that you cannot submit this today. Nope, look, do you want to see the other one? Again, you guys don't have disabilities. You don't. So, your assignment is going to be loaded. If you do not finish, guess what? Turn it into me by Monday, because I'm going to grade it. Here's the directions. Here's the 2 videos to help you. There is so much information on the civil rights movement. If you just want to do civil rights movement, that is fine. Here's the 2 videos I shared with you. To submit, look. Click Google Drive. Hopefully, you titled your presentation. And it drops, the menu drops, and you can find it, click it, then submit. You follow? Sylvia, Rico, and Irizima. And Shane and all of them are there. Look, I just want, look, can I get 2 seconds of your time? Is that cool? Sylvia, Rico, Irizima, let me have your attention. Some of my kids in my previous periods wanted to work on this together. You can do that with the Google Drive. You can share your presentation and work on it together. If you do that, I need to see both names. And I need to also see currently, right now, you all working. Does that make sense? Because guess what? Here's a little side note. Guess what? I'm not grading your presentations, you are. I'm sending them out to your friends. They're going to grade them.
What if somebody that what if somebody that has
If I get one, you're
They
not
have to
gonna
sleep
have
at night. So your presentations need to be very animated and very nice and clean cut, because your friends are watching them. Let's go. I support her. If you want to work with Timothy and Gabriel, that's fine. So everybody get a clock now on who's working, because now you're the judges, not me. Wait. Look at the video.
I already found some. Look, right here. Have
Bro.
That's how it's lost for 2 years. I found the Supreme Court University line.
Are you doing segregation?
Not everybody could do that. Miracle. No.
I swear to you, nobody's not gonna do segregation.
Like, what it's untitled. I go ahead, go.
I'm in the first I quoted it. I texted it. That name was the chef's name. But I have you noticed that they just sell like they don't even sell they barely sell clothes. They only sell that's not why can't they just call it brown instead of funky for sale? I feel like doing it. No, for real, if you look up on Western, you can't do it. And it was this smell like what if it had like they had all their juice. We're supposed to do a close.
Alright, what are we doing?
So the Brown versus
What'd you pick?
Florida Red got 447 U.S. 483 was a landmark.
Greta watched 2 videos on it. Pick something else. Look, I'm assigning Brown versus
Oh, I want to do that now. That's
unconstitutional.
What are you doing?
That's real.
Or you can do a person. Are you guys?
I know the black.
You can do a person.
Savannah.
Oh, that's really good.
Where is it?
It's about Mark Lightstein. Google that. That's a good question.
Lizzie brought my computer. That's not yours.
Give me your laptop.
It's like brought the computer. Oh, dang.
You gotta be friendly with her.
Timothy, meet me outside.
We already know you're not gonna do that.
Okay, just FYI, it is 1:59. We have
Oh.
exactly 16 minutes. Okay, I got the clock. Gabriel, look, I got the clock.
Just pretend like I did.
And we're gonna watch this thingy. We're gonna see this. So, 16 minutes. Sylvia, 16 minutes.
How do I break it down? What is that?
It's the timer. She said that's the timer.
Miss, how do I get on?
Timer's up.
No, I'm just.
Shut off. Oh my god, this is gonna be bad. I'm about to throw your freaking stupid retarded computer.
That's how you do it.
Guys,
Wait.
So, here's some that have already been done.
I want to see what they did. Miss, we gotta do it on PowerPoint.
What are you talking about, Shane? You were here the entire time that I went over that. I'm not going over
I
it.
know, I was just playing. I already know what you mean.
Okay, great. And here's she can waste your time.
Why'd you put it on those? I do know what I'm doing. I gotta go on PowerPoint.
You see how simple this is?
It's simple.
You don't get it. It is not that complicated. Abigail.
Give me.
Abigail.
It's not sharing.
should we do the fun fact here? Alright, find some fun facts. Why is it not color? Find some fun facts from your stupid.
That's how it should be. The whole day.
This one?
Should we do red?
Bro, this one.
There you go.
Big box.
Big box man.
I have the long.
Because I have my finger cut and everything. But guys, zoom out.
Stop.
We're going to look at it through the Bobby Johnson.
I'm looking for some.
Oh my god. No, it's not hurting. Right off. Easy.
Alright.
Really, that's like an extension.
Okay,
this little girl did this in literally 20 minutes.
Whoa, that's a new record.
So,
Whoa.
What do you have for count on?
Whoa.
What? See, the thing is,
I gotta watch this.
Miss, do you want my cake?
Miss, 20 minutes.
You want my cake?
No, I want you to do work.
Okay.
Your hair smells just like my hair when I
Even in a
bro, write some facts over there.
I know.
That's what I'm trying to find out. What is this going to do? I already know that. Wait, you write that out. Write it out.
Oh, and then it broke.
Look, landmark Supreme Court case. 1. Who was involved? 2. What happened?
Can I do that first?
I
don't need next month. Why did you get this? Oh, yeah.
Miss, that was a movie.
Watch it, break the computer. Rock, sir, stay up.
Can't just ease it out. This is the movie about Dr. Martin Luther King. What?
Yeah.
Doctor.
There's also a movie
Yeah,
about
Dr.
Rosa
Martin
Parks.
Luther King.
That's his
Yeah.
name.
Yeah.
Doctor? No, it's Martin Luther King Jr.
It's doctor.
Oh, it is?
I mean, he went to school and he became a doctor.
I thought it was
This is important. You know that, right? All of what you're doing right now is
what
important.
content?
All right, Shane, let me clarify again. You need a title of the topic that you're researching.
I already got that.
You need 10 facts. And then you need 2 pictures. That's it. It's 2:06. Yes, you can submit it by Monday.
Okay, Crown versus Boris.
The outcome, there's another fun fact. The impact, meaning what happened after that.
Yeah.
Parties involved.
She's right.
Selma, look, you can even add Miss Anaya and Greta. You can even add clips, video clips, into your presentation. You know that, right?
Yeah, but how do you add
Find the link.
Like we're using like a movie, right?
You can use the movie. That's a good movie. It is an event, though, Miss Anaya, that actually happens. That's why I gave you that event. So look. What's essential questions that you can have? Selma is a plate.
We work with something that got a new person though.
Right here. It's in the computer, so you need to do after.
Hey, look.
Okay, real quick.
Alright, where is it?
Real quick, so that because some of you are not finished, look. How you submit. Here we go. Pay attention because I'm not going over this again. Because it is an assignment and it is due, and if you don't finish, you take that mess home.
I see you go on that side.
Whoa!
Alright.
Because we both shared it, so we could both do it at the same time.
You're a champion?
Yes, you can work together. But this is what it's called. Civil Rights Movement Project. Click.
Miss, you a champion?
Do you see this submit?
Yes. You just submit it and then
Sylvia?
and then you click the file.
Submit. Actually, you're pretty educated on how to do this, right?
Ah. Who's Ashley?
Anaya, you know how to submit?
Yeah.
Rigo, you know how to submit? Actually, he's pretty computer savvy. Anybody else not know how to submit?
I know how to.
You got it? Good. Now, look, I'm gonna go right over there. And now I know that you guys know how to do this. And there's no excuse.
So,
Because no one in here is asking me questions. Okay? Look, here I go. Here I go. Going back to my desk.
Miss, we got questions.
What's up?
the fox.
What the fox say? Ding, 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 ding.
So this is like, I couldn't even write it.
Yeah, what did Mason say? What did Mason say? Ding, ding, ding.
Oh, you put it there.
I keep on putting it in.
Mason, what did Mason say? Ding, ding,
No, I
ding,
didn't
ding,
actually do the,
You can add music to your slides too.
Yeah!
Put music.
How do you do that?
Add some rap music to it, be like,
You can see some of the ones that weren't carried.
Doja, look at it. Put Doja in it. You'll make it better.
Yeah, Rico probably.
Rico!
How do you do this? You don't learn
Put a nickel in the dryer, and then you dance. I want the music. Gabriel. Oh, they are you a champion? Are you a champion?
Why are you doing informational facts? Just
That's
the same thing that's on that.
I want to be a champion, man.
Oh, look at Mr. Rutledge. That looks great.
Rodney Joseph.
Mr. Buckley,
Who they are.
Mr. Buckley.
It's cool.
Bro, let's just do segregation.
Who is Buckley? I have no idea.
Rodney.
Good evening. Let's do Rosa Parks.
We didn't choose that. We didn't choose it. Alright?
That's easier.
I felt sorry for you. Yeah, or any song you want.
Bro, nothing happened.
It's not coming back.
Probably can do colors, right?
I don't know.
I've heard
Christian.
Those are the people that are working.
Bro, chill.
All right, 213.
You didn't even do it.
Kristen are researching progress.
They're gonna be able to get while you guys are going to take it.
How do you know this?
She's smarter than all of us.
Right.
So she can see that one.
What the hell was that? What the heck did that music? Anaya, what was that? That looks like some big musical.
Are you good?
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
We're so cringy.
So what time is it?
We're so much.
Do we have Fabiana?
Monday.
Monday. Yeah, I'll do this. Alexa, how do you come out?
We do this at home. We're talking about I already got two.
Every day is awesome. Oh, you're really good.
Oh, yeah, sure.